Welcome to Pain with a Purpose, the podcast where we dive deep into the stories of resilience, redemption, and purpose. I'm your host, Chris Woods, and each week we will sit down with guests who have faced challenges with substance abuse, mental health, and recovery. But we're not just dwelling on the past. Instead, we'll explore what keeps them driven towards a purposeful life. Join us as we navigate the journey from pain to a purpose. With that, welcome back to Pain with a Purpose. Season 2, episode 16.
You're looking at me.
16. Yeah, I thought you know. With Darnell Hinton. Thank you so much for coming out, dude.
Of course.
I know you as Darnell, right? Some people might know you as Darnell from Teach One, Feed One.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might know you from Unity Recovery Sober Living, right? Some people might know you from Darnell from Kennedy.
Kendrick, yeah.
Some people might, and that might not be a good reputation.
Yeah, no, that's probably not the best.
Right. I mean, I went through the same stuff, so I get it. Right.
Mhm.
But the cool thing is that like you're very much a gleaming example of like, you are not your past. So we'll jump right into it. What kind of pain have you gone through? Right. Because essentially we're on like Pain with a Purpose, but there's a reason why I know why I had you, come on the show and why I want you to be on here. But what like led up to the man of honor and dignity, right?
Mhm.
That sits before me today. Like what led up to all of that, right? Like give me a little taste of like your childhood and early into like maybe making some bad decisions.
Okay, yeah. So, I would say childhood. I grew up in Norristown, which is like maybe 20, 25 minutes away from here.
Mhm.
Not the best area, I'll say. Not the worst either. But if you're looking for trouble, you can find it in Norristown. I went to Eisenhower Middle School, so I went to public school.
So you went to public then Catholic?
I went to public and then Catholic.
Yeah.
So what happened is I got in a lot of trouble in like, I would say elementary school and middle school, just doing dumb stuff, trying to be class clown, thinking I was the funny guy, acting out in class, just like being bored and basically like acting out. And then I got in a lot of trouble. So in an attempt to try and give me a better opportunity, I grew up in a 2-parent household, 2 like amazing and loving parents that gave me everything I could have ever imagined and everything I could have ever asked for as a child. And in an attempt to try and, give me a better experience and a better opportunity, they put me in Catholic school, which at that time I was not the biggest fan of because, I'm young, I'm immature, I didn't want to like make new friends at that time. So looking back on it now, if I just fast forward, like in retrospect, I guess I should say, it was probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me because I got to like experience things and meet people that opened my eyes to different things that I probably would have never been exposed to if I hadn't gone to that school. Like I remember the first sleepover at like one of my buddy's houses that I went to. He lived in Bluebell, and like we went to his house, and I was just like, they have a 2-car garage. They have a swimming pool. They have like, it was a really nice home, and I was like, whoa! Like none of my friends where I grew up, none of their homes look like this. Like this is something. And there were a lot of other experiences that like, I guess I can identify like kids when they got like a new car, like when they, they got their license and they got their permit and they got their first car. It was like, it wasn't like a hand-me-down car or like, I'm grateful for the car that I got because it was what my parents could afford. And I'm grateful for even that because they didn't have to get me anything.
Yeah.
But they're getting like brand new vehicles, and I was like, whoa, like that's something that I would have never.
Impossible, yeah.
It was impossible, and it opened my eyes to different things and it opened my eyes to different experiences.
So I don't know how you perceived it like in real time, right? So like the way that I perceived it is like I grew up very similar in the sense that, so I grew up in
it was my grandparents and my mom, right? My dad was never really like playing a part in my life, but like my mom would do whatever she had to do to like make sure that she could put me through Catholic school, essentially. When like she absolutely could not afford to put me through Catholic school. So like when I was showing up to school, even in the drop off line, like there was like brand new cars letting their kids out, right? And like we were not in a brand new car, you know what I mean? But as I got a little bit older, right, like I had the same experience where it was like, if I was at like a keg party or something like that, and like I ended up like, you know, calling my mom and being able to stay out, like I'd be at like my friend's house and I'm like, you got a whole finished basement?
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
Like you got like flat screens out here? Like
Exactly.
my whole, like what? Like I guess you could say like my TV stand?
Yeah.
Was the old TV.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So like when I perceived it as like less than, you know what I mean? And I didn't know that at the time. It was all like subconscious, right? But hindsight's 2020, right? Like really, that was like unconditional love. Like my mom did everything in her power to give me the life that she thought that I deserved.
Exactly.
But I don't see that like that real time, right? I'm like, you know, I'm very much like the kid at the dinner table that's like, well, you know, this guy and then my friend over here got this, and my friend over, and like just super ungrateful. So not to cut you off, but like that's just like how I relate with all that, right? Where it was like, you know, we both ended up okay, right? But I definitely have a profound respect for like what I have in my life today. It's funny though, like when I had kids, right? Like how quickly you're like, whatever you need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'll do whatever I got to do.
Yeah.
So eventually you went to Catholic school, right? And you started to get introduced to a whole nother life that you didn't
Whole
really
different
know.
life.
Which is only like Bluebell was what? Not far away.
Not
from
far away at all.
Norristown.
No.
It's like 10 minutes up the street.
So the school was in Norristown. Kenrick was actually in Norristown. Like, my buddy's house, that was like my first time I went to like one of my friends, the friends that I made, he lived in Bluebell. So that was like my first experience, eye-opening experience where I was like, whoa, this is like not something that I'm accustomed to. Like the houses of the friends that I'm accustomed to, they live with their grandma because, you know, their dad lives with their grandma. It was just like a completely different experience for me. So, I went to Kenrick. I went to Catholic school, and I was a relatively, I would say I was a relatively like good kid. I didn't get in too much trouble, you know, but I started to at that age. I started like experiencing in different things, and nothing too much, like you know, 16, 17, you know, I started drinking, smoking. I was a late bloomer, I guess you could say, in the sense of like, if you're talking about like substance use.
Well, especially being in a Catholic school too.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is just the way I see it. I feel like the Catholic school kids almost party harder than the public school kids.
Absolutely. I question that a lot, actually.
Right?
Like if I would have went to public school, how would my life be different? Would I have gotten involved in some of the same things that I got involved in? Because when I went to public school, I got in trouble, but I got in trouble only because I was doing stupid stuff. You know, but I still managed to get like really good grades, and like I guess I was doing a lot better because I don't know if it was a matter of the curriculum not being as difficult, or maybe the I don't know, like the individuals that I was in school with in comparison. I don't know what it was about, but for whatever reason, like I did well in school. I did well in Catholic school as well, but the curriculum was a little bit more difficult, and the competition, for lack of a better term, you know, who you were stacked up against in terms of the individuals there was more competitive.
Did you play sports at Kenrick though?
I played sports. Yeah, we weren't that good, so I don't want to talk about that.
Well, unfortunately, you weren't that good at really anything.
We weren't good at anything, no.
But you all, you know what I mean? The issue was that like you knew you were going to have like an easy win when Kendrick came on. But you also knew that there was a couple fights coming. Yeah. You know what I mean? Exactly. So it's not like you guys just like showed up and like didn't play. Like you guys still had heart. Yeah. Which was always, you know, always fun. But it was crazy when they shut down Kenrick, and then everybody went to what? Carroll or St. John Paul, whatever it was?
Well, yes. So Kenrick eventually became St. Pope John Paul. Yeah. It combined with St. Pius, which is in Pottstown. They shut down. We shut down. They combined. But then a lot of kids also, like, they just moved and went to Carroll, which is like in this area, actually, I think.
Yeah. You know, hopefully I'm in a spot where that's where I can pull my kids. I don't know. Or charter school. I mean, charter school, you know what I mean? But who knows? Anyway, so 15, 16, you started drinking, which I do think that it's a little bit late for a Catholic school kid.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so I'm sure you didn't just go like right from like your first keg party or your first like blunt, right, to like burning your life to the ground. I'm sure it was like a progressive thing. But did you ended up graduating, you went to college?
I went to Westchester, yeah.
Well, we could end the episode there. We know where it went sideways.
Exactly, yeah.
So you were living.
Bro, I was
essentially
living.
You were, you know, like parents weren't around no more.
No.
You were very much at a party school.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because it's only 20 minutes away from where you live.
Exactly.
But probably felt like a completely different place.
Bro, completely different place. I got there and I was like, whoa, like, you mean to tell me I'm here? There's illegal substances, there's illegal things, there's women, and there's no adults. Like, there's no supervision. I don't have to answer to my mom. I don't have to worry about, like, you know, she doesn't have to worry about when I'm coming home, or I don't have to answer to her as to when I'm coming home. I can do what I want. It was...
listen, we could have a whole nother episode on like how, like, I could have never pulled it off. You know what I mean? I don't know how some kids do.
Yeah.
And like stay on the straight and narrow.
It's insane.
Especially now, like I see it a lot more with like these younger kids that are in college that are like very much into like health and wellness and fitness and everything. So there's definitely like almost like a newfound wokeism, if that's even the correct way to put it, where people are very more concerned with like doing right by their bodies instead of like getting messed up all the time. But yeah, I could have never pulled it off. Like, I'm absolutely finding the people that aren't about shit, that are not going to class, that are not answering to nobody, that are, you know, getting into trouble. More power to you. So you graduated from Westchester, or like
I did not graduate.
Okay. I was going to say, dude,
that's a story. That's a story of its own. You know, like I ended up finishing. So I completed. I forget like how many credits you need to complete. I was 6 credits short of what I needed to complete. But you don't need, so the only credits that I was missing was the, you have to do like an internship after you like walk in graduation. So after you finish, you have to do like, or complete like an internship. So I walked in graduation. All my family was there. All my friends were there. It gets better. So I walked in graduation. I did the whole thing. We went out to lunch. And then the next week, I think, or maybe the next month, I forget when it was, is I was supposed to complete an internship at a criminal justice building because the plan was I wanted to be an attorney. So I just did whatever, I picked whatever was, criminal justice was my major. I just picked whatever like related the closest. And I was supposed to do a 3-month internship at this place. And that's how you satisfy your final 6 credits. And that's how you earn your degree. Well, the first day of the internship, I was dope sick and I no-showed. And I was thinking, you know, I was like, all right, well, it's my first day.
It's not like I'm getting paid.
I'm a college student. It's not like I'm getting paid. I'll probably get reprimanded. They'll write me up, worst case scenario, but they're not going to fire me. I was wrong. You know, I no-showed. And when I called the lady to see, you know, like, hey, when should I come in next? You know, I got this big email that said, you know, we'll be in touch and because you did not show up for the first day of your practicum, you've been terminated.
Damn.
And because I got terminated, they were like, the criminal justice major got back to me and they said, hey, because you didn't complete your practicum, you now cannot graduate with your criminal justice degree. So your options is you have to re-enroll and enroll as a, what is it called? A liberal arts. You have to get your liberal arts degree and you have to like take the remaining 2 classes or 3 classes, whatever it is. And that's
essentially like another semester.
And that's how you have to satisfy to get your degree. I never did it.
No, I mean, yeah, I don't know if I would have either, but like, so did your parents know exactly like what happened?
I had to go home later that day and tell my mom and dad that I got fired from my practicum and I wasn't going to be able to get my degree. Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty
They
bad.
went from being like super proud to being like, Darnell, what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop there.
No, it doesn't stop there. That
It was just starting.
bro, that was the beginning.
Yeah.
That was the absolute like beginning. And I like kind of fast forwarded, to be honest. Like I kind of skipped a lot
Yeah.
because when I was in college, I kind of like I believe I was a late bloomer. And
Mhm.
like I just drank and smoked and drank and smoked and drank and smoked. I thought I was just partying like
Yeah.
every other
There was probably kids that were partying harder than you.
exactly.
Mhm.
There were. So I just thought I was partying like every other kid, you know, and looking back on it now in retrospect, I can like 1000% I like identify and I guess I realized that I was looking for and craving a connection. That's what I was looking for. Like
Yeah.
when I started drinking at Kenrick and when I started smoking at Kenrick, it wasn't even the drinking and the smoking. It was the feeling that it gave me and the connection that it gave me that like I felt like I was a part of and I
Yeah.
felt like I was accepted because I was young, I was vulnerable, I had to make friends, and that was really the only way that like I guess that was the easiest way for me to do that, is the simplest way for me to say that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not to say that I didn't make those choices, because I did. I absolutely made those choices and those are my choices, but the reason why I made those choices looking back on it is I was looking for a connection. I was just
Yeah.
looking for a way to connect with people, and that was the easiest way for me to do that. So in Westchester, I just continued to do the same thing. I drank, I smoked, you know, and I still managed to get good grades just off sheer luck, to be
Mhm.
honest with you, because I really I was partying way more than I should have, but I was still able to like function. You know, if I was hungover, that didn't stop me from going to class.
Yeah.
If I, you know, like smoked before class, that didn't stop me from going to class. Like I could still function at that point. It wasn't until I started experiencing and other things that like
Yeah.
really started to deteriorating like
So when
me
you,
as a person.
So you started to like, you got introduced to opiates at school?
At Westchester, yeah.
And this is like no shot at like Westchester or any university, right? Because like really it's everywhere.
Of course.
Or at least back then it definitely was. Because I think the majority of us, especially with like the perks and the opiates and schools in that timeline, like they had no clue like
Mm-mm.
what this stuff was.
No.
Right. And we were walking around doing these, you know, these Johns essentially, and like, you know, thinking that we were fine. We had
Mhm.
no clue
Had no
what we
clue.
were really, what we were diving into.
No clue.
The problem really became apparent when like I tried to get off these things, and then I continued to go to rehab, and I was
Yeah.
like, what the hell happened in my life?
Yeah.
So the first day of your practicum, you were dope sick.
I was dope sick.
So you were obviously in the thick of it at that point.
I was in the thick of it at
Yeah.
that point. It wasn't like
I mean, it probably got worse too.
it got
but like,
a
yeah.
lot worse, but
Yeah.
I was in the like enough to the point where I was like, I can't
Yeah.
get up and go to this thing. There's no way I can function.
How old were you then?
21 or 22 at that point.
Yeah. And did your parents have any idea? Like anything? Like I'm sure they thought you were, you know, a normal kid.
So
But, like-
I still remember the day I told my dad that like I had that I was struggling.
Yeah.
I drove home and I was like, hey, is there any way you could make me? I knew my dad was on because my dad was prescribed oxycodone for his back.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't figure this out until I started doing, pills. I didn't figure out like that they gave you this euphoric feeling,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I put 2 and 2 together and I was like, okay, I know he's getting these from his doctor. And I was like, Dad, listen, I'm just not feeling well. Is there any way you could schedule me an appointment with your doctor? And he was like, yeah, son, no problem. We went down to his doctor. We sat down with him. And I remember the doctor coming in and he was like, he gave me this look as if to say like, do you want your dad in the room or do you not want your dad in the room? And I was like, I would prefer if he was not in the room. And my dad left the room and he was like, so tell me what's going on. Your dad said, you know, you're not feeling well. And I was like, to be honest with you, I'm taking these pills and I can't stop.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, what are you taking? And I told him what I was taking. And he was like, I got a little emotional because that was the first person I had told was the doctor that like I was taking something and I didn't know how to stop. And he was like, okay, well, what we can do is back in the day, the way that we used to treat this is we used to give individuals catapress. It's a blood pressure medication. Yeah, he said it's a blood pressure medication, but what it'll do is it'll it'll help curve the cravings. And it did help. It just wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
He prescribed me the medication, and I remember my dad walking back into the office, and I was like, I had tried to like wipe my tears away because I was a little emotional, and I don't know if he knew at that point or not, but like I could, the doctor was like, yeah, he's got some blood pressure issues, and my dad was like, blood pressure? He's 22 years old. He's 22 years old, and I remember like this confused look on his face, like, damn, how's he got blood pressure issues? So, obviously that wasn't enough. I took the medication. It did help.
You meant well.
I meant
right?
well.
Like you literally tried.
I tried. It just wasn't enough, bro. And then eventually it got to the point where, I had texted my mom and called my mom and told her, and this is like probably a couple weeks or months after that. And I was like, hey, listen, I got to be honest with you. I'm taking these pills and I don't know how to stop. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to stop. I don't know what the next steps are, but I don't know how to stop. And at that time, if I was 21, my brother was probably 14 or 13 at that time. And
damn,
what I didn't want was I didn't want him to see or like for him to know at that point, because
I didn't want him struggling with something like that.
I didn't want him to know that I was struggling, because I didn't want him to go down the same path.
Yeah.
And I was like, please just don't tell Darius, don't tell him that I'm going through this. I want to try and figure this out and get this right. And I remember that day like it was yesterday, and she was like, all right, we'll try. And they didn't really know I didn't know how to address it. So how would they know how to address it? They didn't know what they were doing. So, things just got, progressively worse. And I tried, how it is. I tried to stop, a couple days here. I'd stop for like a day or two, and I'd take a Suboxone, and then I'd stop, inevitably I'd relapse, and then I'd get another day or two, just off like pieces of Suboxones. And then
such a horrible way to live.
It's a horrible way to live, bro.
It's like mustering up enough motivation and enough, like, I don't even know, to like, all right, I'm done, right?
Yeah.
And you get it to like 24, 32, 48 hours, and you're like, something, right? Where you're like, all right, I just made it this long. You know what I mean? Like, and I just don't want to feel like this anymore right now. So I'll address this a couple weeks from now, right? When I'm in a better spot, right?
Yep.
Whatever lie I was telling myself at the time. And it was horrible, dude. Like I did that for so long. So long. Even like when I was prescribed Suboxone, where I was like, then like the whole Suboxone thing, like, I was prescribed these things, and I would take only like an eighth of what was prescribed to me, sell the rest of them, so I could get on a couple days, right? And then still have enough to not be sick, right? But still the insanity all day was just like, how can I figure out a way to like just get one and not take it's insane that we used to live like that. And I forget that. Like truthfully, I forget that sometimes.
Yeah.
That, like I used to literally live like that.
It's a hard way to live, bro.
Yeah. And what's crazy is like it got worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It got so much worse.
Yeah.
And we're just talking about the internal pain, right?
Exactly.
We're not even talking about people's reputations of me or my own reputation yet. You know what I mean? Or your reputation or what you may or may not have turned into at the end of the road.
Exactly.
I do think I know a little bit in the sense I didn't know that you went for criminal justice, right? But it kind of came full circle, right? Because did you get jammed up?
No, I didn't get jammed up.
You didn't get jammed up?
No, never.
License?
My license. Oh, okay. Yeah, my license. I never got
jammed up.
That's jammed up. But when you say jammed up, I'm thinking state prison, something like that.
Yeah,
nah,
like I
never got jammed up like that.
Because you were like, I wanted to be an attorney, right? And I remember, dude. I mean, we'll get to all that hopefully if we have enough time, because like I feel like we could talk about for everything. But I remember when like you started to like work in the drug and alcohol space, right? And like you were taking meetings, and I'm like, you just did what?
Yeah,
you just took an Uber here.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. And I'm like, dude. And then like, I already thought highly of you, but then like, it went to a whole nother level where I was like, they talk about like the willingness to like, not only get sober and find recovery, but like the willingness to like, recreate your life. Like how many people can you really say that like, that I know, right? That were like, taking those actions. But that's what I meant by jammed up.
Oh yeah.
DWI or DUI, whatever it was.
No, it wasn't even that, bro. It was just a suspended driver's license.
Oh, really?
Failure to like pay fines.
Oh, okay.
That's all. Driving on suspended is what it was.
Okay. Oh, so yeah, you didn't even get really
I didn't.
jammed up? Yeah,
No,
okay.
I didn't get jammed up at all.
If you were an attorney, you would have got out of it.
Exactly. That's what I was hoping for.
So to skip forward a good bit, right? Because we could talk about the pain forever and how bad it got, but I think like we already did a really good job of like kind of describing like it was already bad internally, right? Even early on, and it gets just like ultimately so much worse. What did it look like at the end, like right before? Even if you had already gone to treatment, how many times did you go?
9 or 10.
So like even, you know, like that 10th time, right? Or even like that 9th time. The 9th time is when I met you, right?
No, you probably met me like maybe 6.
Really?
Yeah, after STR. I went to STR like 3 times.
Well, I knew that, but I just didn't know like where we kind of found it.
Probably 6. Maybe like treatment center 6 is when I met you.
So before we even get to that, right? Like the cool thing about like the way that I perceive you and like, you know, like how you've always been like a constant in like, no matter how you say it, like my life, right? Like whether we're close or not, it doesn't really matter to me. The way that I look at it is like, I try to like fill my life with like as much positive stuff as I can, right? And a lot of that, unfortunately, in this day and age is social media. And the one thing that you've been constant in is like my social media. So I'm constantly like looking at the shit you're doing, the stuff that you're trying to do, the people that you're helping. And like from a humble aspect too, which is like the coolest aspect. But yeah, I remember what I say, like 8.5 years ago, 9 years ago at this point, whatever it was. I remember it vividly. I probably was 2 years sober, maybe?
Probably.
And we were at that, I was coming out of the Sunoco. You were walking in the Sunoco, and immediately like my judgment goes off. I'm like, yeah, well, then how car this guy got? What's going on here? Like literally, like that's my sick head, right? And I asked you what you were doing for work, and I think you were doing like sales or you're doing something like that.
Yeah.
You know, fast forward a few weeks later, you're in my backyard of the house that I'm renting with a few sober guys, right? At like a 4th of July party. And then I hadn't seen you for like a year or 2 years after that, right? And then you resurfaced. And I mean, we'll get into all of that and like all the good that you've done and how quickly you've really put it all together. But it was cool to see like my sick head, right? Where it's like, I judge immediately and I compare, right? To like my last statement of like, you were Ubering, you know what I mean? Like to get places, right?
I don't forget that.
And then when you stopped Ubering, right? I just made like, I made the joke outside. I was like, that don't look like no red Honda.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like people don't see the stuff on the back end, right? Where it's like what was that? Like a 93 Civic?
91.
You know what I mean? Riding. Yeah. It was clean though. Everything was legal on it.
Bro, everything was legal. It was clean.
And it was yours.
And it got me where I needed to go, bro.
So yeah, walk me through the last time.
Last time I went to Eagleville Hospital, and I didn't even have insurance the last time I needed treatment. And I went to a place called actually, I went to White Deer Run is where I went first. I got destroyed by bed bugs in White Deer Run. And looking back on it now, I could have stayed, but I wanted to use one more time. So I used the bed bug situation as a manipulation tactic to get my mom to come pick me up. As soon as I said bed bug, she was like, I'm coming to get you. Because I knew she would. She came and she got me. And she said, you're not coming home. You know, you and your dad or you and your sister or whatever, you guys can stay in a hotel for the night. And then we're going to take you to treatment in the morning. And I was like, okay, no problem. And I ended up when I left White Deer Run, there was a guy who was cutting my hair, and he was halfway through cutting my hair when my mom got to the treatment facility. So I had to leave with like half of a haircut. But anyway, I threw away all my clothes.
So you looked worse when you came in.
I looked terrible, right? When I left. I threw away all my clothes before I got in my mom's car. And my dad, just so you guys know, my dad at that time was probably over 300 pounds. So I had to wear like his clothes. It's like what I had on. So like I've got half of a haircut. I'm in my dad's like 4X clothes. I look horrible, right? So me and my sister, we stayed at this hotel, and like I remember before she could wake up in the morning, or like right as we woke up in the morning, I said, I'm going downstairs, I'm going to breakfast. And that was just my cue to just get right on the Norristown high-speed line. I jumped right on the Norristown high-speed line, went to 69th Street, took the L from 69th Street and went down the way. I got one more. To be honest with you, I thought I was going to die. And, you know, I finally answered the phone because they were looking for me. I finally answered the phone and I was like, all right, listen, just come get me. I'm ready. And they took me to Eagleville. And I went to Eagleville, and I'll never forget. It was probably one of the most humbling experiences for me ever, because like Eagleville it's not in Norristown, but it's in Eagleville, which is like right outside of Norristown. It's like the outskirts of Norristown.
Still kind of your neighborhood.
It's
or the people you hung out with. Yeah.
It's my neighborhood, right? So the staff that were there were like girls and guys that I went to elementary school with. And some of them I hadn't seen since middle school or elementary school. And it was simply put, it was very humbling for me. Like for me not to see people in that long, and then for them to see me in that state, it was like, damn, like you used to be, you know, charismatic. You used to be driven. You used to get good grades in school. You used to be like on the basketball team, and now you're here. Like, what happened to you? And I just remember just feeling like so low, you know, like just like so completely just like, wow. And when I got there, you know, the first day, you know, of course, you know, you've been in treatment before. The first day you get there, when you go to your first group, the counselor's like, you know, I want everyone to meet such and such. It's their, you know, it's their first day here. Do you have any words you want to say? And when the person asked me if I had any words I want to say, I'll never forget. I was like, you know, my name is Darnell, and, you know, I'm in treatment for, I think my 9th or 10th time. And, you know, I'm really hoping that I can get this, because right now I just don't have any hope. And I remember feeling like at that point that like I was willing to accept that what I was at that point is exactly what I would be for the rest of my life. Meaning like I'll probably stay here. I'm not going to AMA because I don't do that. They say I have to stay for 30 days, I'll stay my 30 days, but I'm not staying 31. I'm going to do exactly what they tell me to do. I'm not interested in doing anything more. I'm not interested in doing anything extra. I'm not interested in doing anything more than what you guys tell me I have to do. So I'll do my 30 days. I'll get out. If I'm lucky, I'll maybe accumulate 30 to 60 or maybe 90. If I'm really lucky, I'll get 6 months sober. I'll start drinking. I'll kid myself and tell myself that I'm okay. Eventually, you know, 2 or 3 weeks later, maybe a month later, I'll start doing what I really want to do. I'll go back to what I really want. Yep. And I'll lose my job. You know, and when I say job, I mean like I'll get a job at maybe like, I don't know, a restaurant serving tables or something like that. Or just like a regular, you know, sales job, you know, nothing too crazy. You know, I'll do that for a little bit. I'll get fired inevitably because I won't be employable anymore, and I won't be able to keep up with it. And then I'll just repeat this cycle for the rest of my life. And that's just what I'll be for the rest of my life, you know? Yeah. And I was ready to accept that, like, that's who my higher power, that's what he wanted me to be, you know, not that he wanted me to be that, but that's what I was here for, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, essentially, like, you were coming to grips with, like, that's the deck of hand, or the hand you were dealt, right? I remember the same exact thing where it was like, I didn't say it out loud, but I had this internal thought, and that's kind of when it started to shift for me, where it was like, this is my life. Like, you know, like my family, for all things considered, gave me everything they possibly could, right, to like be successful. You know, like, you know, if you look at like after school, if you look at like sports, if you look at all that stuff, like everything was kind of mapped out, right? Like not mapped out to be like this, like super rich or super athletic or super whatever, right? But everything was mapped out. Like there was structured stuff at the end of the day. And I remember having a thought being like, this is me. Like, this is like what I'm going to do. Like every 3 to 6 months, I just come back into treatment, and like, you know, the staff knows me by like my face now at this point. They know my name. They're like, oh, glad you made it back. Did it get any better out there? Like, and I was coming to grips with like, this is it for me. You know what I mean? And it was like, it wasn't until I got into like one of the last treatment centers I went to. And, I said it on a previous episode where it was like, I'm also like much sicker than I think. You know what I mean? Where it's like, much like how I judged you when I saw you outside of Sunoco.
Yeah.
I judge people in treatment. You know what I mean? I'm not as bad as them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming up on my 10th time in treatment, and I'm like, I ain't as sick as Darnell.
Exactly.
You know? And they're like, maybe you're sicker, dude. Maybe you get well, you get sober, and then you go back out. Like, you just like the pain. Like, what do you, so not to like completely sidetrack us, but like I had the same exact thought where it was like, this is it for me. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why, if God's real or if he's not real, why he gave me this hand that I was dealt, but like, it is what it is. Yeah, what a wild revolution when it happened, dude.
And it's not a good feeling at all. Like, it's not like that, like, oh yeah, I was just willing to accept it. Like, this is what I would be. That was like a really like, I don't even know, painful, or like, that was a really sad place to be, to accept that like, there's nothing more out there for me. Like, this is the best I'll ever get, you know, like I'll get a job at like Dunkin' Donuts or something, and, you know, I'll get 90 days clean, and then I'm going to relapse. And then if I'm lucky, I'll end up back in treatment, and then I'll just keep repeating the same process over and over for the rest of my life. Like, I was really like ready to accept that, like, that is what I would be for the rest of my life. And I remember that.
Yeah. Obviously that's not the case, right? Yeah. But like, couldn't have told us different at the time.
No.
Because like my experience up until that point was like, I had gone into treatment multiple times, like previously before that time, with like every sort of like well-intentioned to never do this again. You know what I mean? And then like fast forward 60, 90, at one point, like 10 months later, I'm back in this detox wing, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
How did I get back here?
You know what I mean? I'm like taking hot and cold showers at the same time, talking to myself in here, you know, like talking to myself like in the shower, like, just get me through this. I'll never do it again. And here I am again, treatment episode 8, 9, 10, whatever. It was like, I don't know. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that like, I'm educated. I know what's right and wrong. I know how I'm supposed to act. I know that I should not put this opiate up my nose, but essentially I can't
stop
not doing it. I can't not do it. Which I think is why I also advocate, much like yourself, right? Like, as much as I do, because like, this was never a choice for me. You know what I mean? Sobriety, although if sobriety was a choice, right, I would have gotten sober when I was 19. I always wanted to get sober. I just didn't know how to stay sober, really. Not in the sense that like I really know how to stay sober now, but like I've definitely figured out a way to like keep my mind at ease for the most part. So you got honest with all those people, right? Definitely probably brought the vibe down real quick.
Oh yeah.
They were like, yeah, welcome, dude. Keep coming back.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then shortly after that, I know in like your story that's you're about to say, you also had like another profound thing, whether it be like, you know, a day or a week or 2 weeks later, right? You were like, I'm going to take action. So what did that look like?
So that was, I stayed in Eagleville for 65 days, and that's only because my insurance cut me.
Okay.
So if they would have given me 90 days, I would have stayed for 90 days. You know, I would have stayed in Eagleville as long as they possibly allowed me to stay, because at this point there was nothing to rush back to. There was nothing to try and fix. I had lost everything, you know, like, and I thought I lost everything like the other times I went to treatment, but this time, like, I lost my job. I lost my, you know, my girlfriend at that time. I lost my friends. I lost my, I'm not going to say I lost my family, because they were always supportive, whether they supported me like directly or indirectly, or like from a distance, or like, you know, close. They never gave up on me. But I stayed there for 65 days, and then the plan was to go to a recovery house, but I didn't have any money at that time, and no recovery house would accept me without money. So I pretty much had to beg my mom to come back to her house, you know, and she was like, at that time I was 28 years old. So the last thing I wanted to do was to move back in my mom's house at 28 years old with nothing going on, nothing to show for myself. You know, I get out, or like not even get out, but like at that time, all of my friends they're having their first child. They're buying their first home. They're, you know, they're having their second child. They're like accomplishing,
getting promotions,
Yep. They're accomplishing like all of those life like milestones that like you're supposed to accomplish. And The only thing I accomplished was managing to somehow disappoint.
I got this completion letter from Eagleville.
Yeah, I got this completion letter from Eagleville. That's all I got, and disappointment from everyone around me. Anyone that's connected to me, I've disappointed or I've harmed in some way.
Yeah.
That's all I had to my name at that point. So I got out. My mom said, yes, you can come back here. I got out of treatment. I went back there. I didn't even have a phone at that time because right before I went in, I sold it.
Naturally.
Yeah, I sold my phone. So,
kiosk or like,
no, it was
corner store in
Norristown. It was a corner store in Norristown. Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
I mean, listen, I've been there. You know what I mean? It's like, I lost it. I don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? It's that Plymouth Meeting Mall in the kiosk.
Phone doctor in Norristown, if it's still there.
Yeah. Wow. What a dude. Could you imagine,
bro,
selling your phone today? Like, I live off that thing.
It was the worst.
But the one thing you didn't bring up, right, is that like you were, if I remember correctly, like you guys had like either a small group session or something was going on. And the only reason I remember it is because like I put myself like in that room, right? And if I would have heard somebody say something like you alluded to, like I'm going down to Kensington and I'm going to get
this was an IOP.
Oh, okay.
After I got out.
And I would have been like,
yeah,
pump the brakes, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like talk about that a little bit, like how Teach One, Feed One really came to fruition, right?
Okay.
Because like it's a huge part of your story. It's a huge part of your recovery. It's very much the way that I see it is like a very humble way for you to continue to give back, right? And the cool shit that you do is like unmatched. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of nonprofits out there and they all mean well and they're all great, right? But you've done a really, really cool job of like taking it a step further, right? In the sense of like, side note here, like you gave out a car. You know what I mean? Like that was, you talked about like what people don't know, and probably to this day is what they don't know is the car you gave out was nicer than the car you were driving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was a convertible.
Exactly.
Your paint was chipping.
Yeah.
This thing was like,
I didn't know if I was going to make it to where I was going.
This was a used car, but dude, like, I mean, talk about revolutionizing like something small like that, something big like that. You have no clue how far the ripple effect really goes and who's watching. So yeah, talk about that and like an outpatient. I thought it was an inpatient.
Yeah, no, it was an outpatient. So I was about like 90 days clean at the time, and I was doing IOP at, I think it was Gaudenzia in Bucks County, because I was getting the Vivitrol shot, which I think it helped save my life. I got the Vivitrol shot for like the first 90 days of my sobriety, probably a little bit more, but the reason why I was doing IOP at this place in Bucks County when I was living in Norristown is because that's the only way I could continue to get the Vivitrol shot.
Yeah.
So I was doing IOP there, and I was like, I think about like 90 days clean. And the counselor, it was Friday, he was going around the room and he was just like, oh, I don't think he had anything planned that day. So he was just like, what's everyone going to do this weekend? And when he got to me, I said that I was going to go to Kensington and I was going to feed the homeless. And I'll never forget, he kind of like looked at me, kind of like went back and looked at me like, oh, well, that's pretty noble of you,
Normal look, right?
Yeah.
He was probably trying to pry out, like, you think you should be doing that?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And, what he didn't know is that at that time, and what I don't even know why I said it at this time, but I was like, at that point, I didn't have a car. I didn't have a license. I had no clue how I was going to get there. Like, I had none of that figured out. And for some reason, I was just like, yeah, I'm going to go to Kensington and feed the homeless. So immediately I got up and I was like, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. And what I did was I went on Facebook and I was like,
a status real quick.
Yeah, I was like, shit, I gotta figure this out. I told this man I'm going to go to Kensington and feed the homeless. I'm going to be back here on Monday. I better be able to say that I did it,
Yeah.
And I was determined to do that because I'm not going to say up until that point, but like, I would say for the last like 10 years prior to that point, I hadn't done anything that I said I was going to do. Like if I said I was going to, you couldn't count on my word for anything. If I said I was going to do something, it didn't mean anything. And for the first time in my life, I was going to try and do something that I said I was going to do,
Yeah.
And I put up a Facebook status and I said, I'm looking for one person to join me this weekend to give back to the homeless in Kensington. And 6 people ended up showing up, I believe. We put together like $42 between the 6 of us.
Mm-hmm.
We got 8 boxes of pizza. and indirectly started something that I don't think any of us could have ever imagined.
Yeah. So $42, fast forward, and we'll jump back, right? But like, just to give like a tidbit of like anybody that, you know, like denies that like God is real, or like this thing's bigger than us, or whatever your experience is, right? Like, $42 the first time around, 8 boxes of pizza. Fast forward to now, right? I already alluded to the car. The other cool stuff that you've done is you've traveled the nation, right? And like, really put like a lot of thought into all this stuff, right? And like, you know, build out like personalized gifts, and like a lot of nonprofits, right? Like they do, again, everybody's doing great stuff, but you put like such a personal feel on everything, right? Where it's like, I don't even know how to put it, man. Like handwritten letter, like that stuff's awesome, dude. Like that stuff, like I can't imagine like what that would have done for. And I was fortunate, right? Where like my mom wrote me like a month check, right? And she was like, "Don't ask me for nothing ever again." Right. But like, you know, people that have thousands of back balance, right? Like you guys are so willing to help everybody, which has been like so cool to see, because like fast forward from like that statement where you're going down there to like, you know, the stick-to-itiveness of like, no, this is absolutely like a thing now, right? And it's a real 501c nonprofit. The opportunities are endless. So what is Teach One, Feed One now, right? Because like, although you guys have still frequently go down and like feed the homeless, you guys do a lot more than that as well.
We do. Yeah. So, Teach One, Feed One is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And our mission is to provide the tools for sustained sobriety to individuals in recovery and ongoing support to their loved ones. I would say we have 4, I guess, identifiable areas of focus. One is financial means for safe housing. So like if you're in recovery or if you're in rehab and you don't have the money to go to a recovery house, we can scholarship you to go to a recovery house. Equitable access to treatment, vital in-kind services. And then we have our own independent structured living homes. And we do this for individuals nationwide battling substance use disorder.
Yeah. What's the furthest that you guys, where are you guys in Nashville at one point?
We've been to Boston, Massachusetts. We've been to Houston, Texas. We've been to Knoxville, Tennessee. We've been to Atlanta, Georgia. We've been to Cleveland, Ohio. We've been to Washington, D.C. And there's probably 1 or 2 other places that I'm missing, that we've like directly boots on ground, like served and assisted individuals in those areas. And like when we do those things, it's not just like oh, hey, we're here, you know, here's this, goodbye type of thing. Like, most importantly, like when we do those things, the most important thing that we're providing, like whatever tangible thing that we give them, whether it's like a flowers for girls with a like handwritten letter of encouragement, or like sneakers for guys with like a handwritten letter of encouragement. The most important thing that we're looking to instill and provide is hope. Is like showing people that like, if you don't have your like, if your parents gave up on you, or whoever you like have to support you gave up on you, and you don't have anyone, some people have no one else. Like they literally are like, they're alone. They're fighting this battle alone. Yeah. Like we're here to support you. And it works because the individuals that like we go and we have those experiences with, they reach out. Like I'm Facebook friends probably with all of them. And like they follow the page, and like when they need something, they take us up on it. Like, hey, you know, such and such just happened, or I need to get to a meeting. Can you guys Uber me? Like they follow up with us, and like they use us, and like, I don't want to say use us for that in that sense, but like they use the resources that we have open to them.
I mean, yes, they use you, right? But like, I think the better way to put it would be like they're advocating for themselves.
Exactly.
Right? Like they want to, like, you guys are more than willing to help whoever that's like on the right journey. Right?
Exactly.
And I'm sure you encounter, much like myself at any given time early in sobriety, where like the people that really aren't about much, right? And like that was me any given day. That's probably why you corrected yourself, where you were like, they use us, right?
I didn't mean it in that sense.
Well, it's because like my head goes to like,
exactly,
absolutely,
for the wrong reasons.
Depending on where I was at, like I would have been like, oh, Darnell, I'm down bad. You know what I mean? Turns out my mom wrote me a check. Now I'm getting, you know,
exactly, doubling up.
Yeah, literally. But not to take away from like all the like the phenomenal stuff that you guys do. I mean, you guys do the golf outing. You guys do. We could literally do an entire episode on like Teach One, Feed One. And then on the flip side of it, you talked about like the independent living, right? With Unity Sober Houses, right? Is it Unity Sober Houses or Recovery Houses?
So it's Unity Sober Living Homes, but Teach One Feed One also has 3 step down houses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that you
I
need.
had no idea.
Yeah, so you need 9 months to get into one of those houses.
Gotcha. Okay. But then, I mean, really, it doesn't even matter what aspect it is, right? Like you guys do the financial literacy, right? You guys do all the time free haircuts. You guys do like so much outside stuff that like a lot of these standalone, nobody doesn't mean well, but a lot of these like recovery houses that are essentially just recovery houses. You guys offer so much, where it's like there's so much more of a need for it out there. How many, like in total, how many houses do you have now?
So a total of 13, and then just going back to like the 13 recovery houses, but just touching on the point that you said in terms of like what we offer. When individuals come into the program, like I'll be the first to tell if I do a phone intake, which I don't do too many, if I'm being honest with you, but because I have amazing people that like I'm blessed and grateful to have that like are able to do that kind of stuff for us. But in the scenario that I do, or when I have the chance to talk to someone, or even when they do, we're very, very, I guess, transparent in the sense that like, hey, we're located in Pottstown. Our homes, it's not the King of Prussia area. It's not the Ritz-Carlton. And you're probably not going to, the reason why you would choose coming here is not because we have the nicest homes aesthetically. Like it's not, again, it's not the Ritz-Carlton. It's not the Four Seasons. That's not why you would come here, but we are going to hold you accountable. We are going to provide structure.
Yeah.
We are going to make sure we hold you accountable. And we are going to provide different things in terms of like programming. So like you said, like financial literacy and credit rebuilding and entrepreneurial courses and from time to time, free haircuts and different things for the girls that like are added bonus that, like you said, I don't know too many other programs, and that's not to speak bad. It's just me being honest. I don't know too many other programs that are doing those things, but those things are important to me because those are things that I could have utilized when I was living in a recovery house. Like, you know how it is. You get out of treatment, you weren't able to get a haircut for at least a month. The first thing you probably want to do is get a haircut, So, and then like looking back on it in retrospect, knowing what I know now, like the financial literacy course or like the credit rebuilding course for me at that time would have been,
oh my God,
I don't know if I would have possessed the mental capacity to like want to learn. I probably would have been a knucklehead in the back of the class, like goofing around like the other 9 times I went to treatment. But the one time I was ready, for the individuals that are ready and that are serious, that really want to change their lives, it's really important to them. And like they take it seriously and they use the information, and like we're just like presenting the information, but from there they have the opportunity to exchange contact information with the individuals that are presenting. Yeah. And like, I guess get extended services from them, Absolutely. I mean, much like yourself, I don't know how much I really would have like absorbed. But you want to talk about like financial literacy, dude. I mean, like I had like no credit when I came in, but I still managed to like get like 1 credit card before I got sober. And it was for like $1,500, you know what I mean? But I maxed that out real quick. Right. And then just let it be for the next like however many years. It took me like 3 years to even like really even have a conversation with myself about, are we going to take care of this or are we going to keep running from this? So like financial literacy, even like when I first got a job, like I didn't know what to do with my money. I had no clue. So I mean, like all that stuff is crucial, dude. Because like when we got sober, probably much like yourself, like I was a child. You know what I mean? I would have never admitted it back then, but like I had no clue what I was doing. And I had to learn from people like, in the rooms, or people like yourself, or like I had to watch and be taught how to like actually move like an adult. So I can't talk like enough about like the good stuff that you guys do. As far as like currently, right? Because like now we're dwindling down on time, but like we could talk
for another 4 hours on all this stuff. But that's all of like the, you know, if you like search Darnell Hinton, right? Like that's all the stuff that'll pop up. All the stuff that doesn't pop up is everything that I want to talk about now, right? Essentially, like, you know, like what happens behind closed doors, and how you've been able to like maintain being a productive member of society, right? And who you have in your corner, right? Because much like you build out Teach One, Feed One, or really the community that surrounded you did build it out, the community that you have around you, probably some of the closest friends you have in your life, right, are part of this nonprofit that you never would have thought would have been possible. If you would have asked yourself however many years ago when you were in Eagleville, like what your life would look like, you'd be like,
I was supposed to go to the Air Force.
I'm going to be either in the Air Force or I'm going to be driving like some sort of like luxury car, or like I'm going to be, you know, selling solar panels. Is that what you were selling at the time?
In when I was living in Levittown, I was
solar panels, right? Like
Vivint
you'd be like,
Solar.
You'd be like selling something, right? Or like, you know, and it was all tied to probably much like myself. And maybe I'm just speaking for myself and in certain your experience, but it was all tied to like shit that just didn't matter. You know what I mean? And then fast forward to like what your life is today. You want to talk about like a full life and like, you know, selling yourself short if we would have got what we wanted back then. You know what I mean? So talk a little bit about like how, I don't even really know what the question is, right? Like essentially like how Teach One, Feed One has not only become like this very larger, great nonprofit, but also your family, right? And then we'll like move into like all the cool stuff that just happened most recently.
Yeah, of course. Teach One, Feed One, bro. Teach One, Feed One is, first of all, it was the first. So I'm an entrepreneur. I have like several different things that I do. Teach One, Feed One was the first thing that I've ever, like entrepreneurial wise, I guess, if you want to call it that, the first thing I ever like explored into. It always has been my first priority. It always will be my first priority because it's what's most important to me. It's given me like a lot of my identity and who I am is because of Teach One, Feed One. And just like being able to, like before this most recent time I got sober, I was never in service. I wasn't willing to get in service. I didn't want to, like, in my mind and like in my heart, I knew it was the right thing to do to be of service, but there was no action behind it. I wasn't going down to Kensington. I wasn't going across the street to be of service. That just wasn't who I was. I wasn't like interested in those things at that time. Again, like in my heart, I knew it was the right thing to do, but you would have never seen me like get into action and actually do anything.
Yeah.
And because of Teach One, Feed One, and the opportunity that it has like blessed me with to be able to bless the lives of other people, it has given me a new perspective on life. It has given me a new perspective just on myself as an individual and who I am. And it has blessed me with opportunity. I'm sitting here today because of Teach One, Feed One. Like, if I'm being completely honest with you, it's given me like, it's made me who I am today. I don't really know how else to explain it. It's made me who I am. And I'm very grateful for all of the individuals that have supported us and not just like financially, but like shared a post, liked a picture, told someone about it, like contributed in any possible way, because, being of service and like serving other people is like, it's who I am today. Like, it's kind of like when I think of that, like that's what I think of. So I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful to be in a position to help others. And I don't forget that.
I mean, and listen, like we got to give credit where it's due, right? Because like, put yourself back to when you had to go home, like the first time when you got fired from your practicum.
Yeah.
And your parents were probably like, fuck Darnell. Like, you know, and like whether they tell you enough or not, or they tell you all the time, doesn't really matter. The point that I'm trying to prove is like any relationship can be rebuilt, right? But imagine how like profoundly proud they are, right? To say that like my son's Darnell Hinton. and they're like, oh, well, what does he do? Like, like think about like the parents that like have to answer to their friends, right? Like, well, what's your son up to? And it's like, how much time you got?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was me for a long time.
But now it's in a good way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like now it's like how much time you got? Because like he's doing so many different things. And giving back in so many different ways, and not even from like an entrepreneurial standpoint, and like what you do as far as like putting food on the table, right? Like just like from just a genuine good person standpoint, right? Like how much time you got, and I mean that genuinely, right? Like where it's like that's how I see you, right? And I know that I've said it to you in the past, right? Where it's like I used to care so much about like what people either said or didn't say about me, right? And I think I remember like picking your brain about like, did you ever care about like when you were early on with Teach One Feed One and like the comments that you may or may not have gotten, and whether you did or didn't, right? Like it's all null and void because like now you sit here today, right? Still the same exact humble person, right? Still doing the same, essentially God's work, which has just been like really cool to see. I mean, you want to talk about like your now fiance hitting the jackpot. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
so
hit the jackpot.
Congrats on that.
Thank
Most
you.
recent engagement was a little windy, but like I saw it, right?
It was
Me and my
windy,
wife were looking at it and she, I already told her, I told you, she hit me with the deep breath. I was like, so now I got to step it up. So appreciate you.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, like, I mean, you want to talk about like, just like a life beyond your wildest dreams. So what's the next, like, what's the plan look like? Like, what's the next couple years look like? Whether it be family, Teach One, Feed One, how you've continued to turn like your pain into a purpose. Like, what does the next couple years look like for Darnell and everybody in your life?
So I guess thank you, first of all. The next years for me, and I guess there's a couple different like sectors I can put that in for Teach One, Feed One. The next, I guess, step for us is we're really starting to try and, because up until this point we really haven't gotten any grant funding, not because we like applied and didn't get it. We just we haven't really like taken the time to even explore those avenues in terms of like federal funding and things of that nature. Like we've really been, I would say, 95% donation based. So we're going to try and explore like getting grant funding to like widen our audience and widen the amount of people that we can reach. And we have some pretty cool programs that we are thinking of implementing. I'll just say one. So one of the programs that we want to implement is we want to have a program set up for individuals that are leaving their recovery house. And basically what it would do is there would be an application process and a formal process, but if they were to move out to get their first apartment, if they qualified, we would provide them with furniture to furnish their apartment. And we would also probably do like a rent match. So a move-in match. So let's say they needed $4,000 to move into their apartment. We would meet them halfway with $2,000. So that's something that we're working on. And hopefully if we get approved for these grants that we applied for, that we could implement.
That would be huge.
Yeah, I think that would be really nice.
Yeah, because we bought our house like 5-6 years ago, and we still got hand-me-down shit in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
it's expensive, bro.
My silverware?
Bro, it's expensive.
Like you get like, you get like, not to go on a whole tangent here, but like you go and you're like, okay, we're going to make this big adult decision, right? Like we're going to go like whether renting or buying, doesn't matter. And then you get in there and you're like, now what?
Now what?
You know what I mean? Like I kind of want a mirror.
I need a couch.
I kind of want like this. I want that. And it's like,
I need a
we're
TV
tapped.
stand.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would be absolutely huge. And I don't know of anything else that really like exists like that.
Yeah.
So
we're working on that. Personally, I got a lot of, I guess I should separate personal from professional. So personally, I have a new fiance. I have to get used to saying that. I still say like girlfriend.
Yeah.
She doesn't like that too much. So
wait until it becomes wife. That's a change too.
Yeah, I got to get used to saying that. So, we are obviously she's, I know you probably know, but she's not from this country. She's from Belgium. So a huge part of what we are focused on now is the immigration process.
Mhm.
So she's going to move over here, and we have to figure out the steps that we need to take, which we already have figured out. Like, we met with an immigration attorney, and he kind of gave us the rundown of what we need to do. But just like the formal process of what we need to do to get her over here in terms of like the filings and things of that nature, that's I think we would both identify as priority number one.
Mhm.
And then from there, once we like start that process and get the process rolling, start thinking about like a ceremony and picking a date and doing things of that nature. But first things first, we need to get the ball rolling on her to become a U.S. citizen.
I
Because that process
assume we
can
don't
take,
use. I assume it's not easy, or like we don't make it easy, right?
it's not easy.
Yeah.
No, it's
or
not.
it might be easy, but I'm sure there's like a lot of hoops to go through.
There's a lot of hoops
Yeah.
you have to go through. Yeah, there's a lot of hoops that you have to go through. It can, I mean, you can use an attorney, but you don't have to use an attorney either. I don't think we're going to use an attorney. We're going to try and do it. She's very intelligent. I'm not very intelligent, but
Yeah.
like with her being kind of intelligent and me
Mhm.
being not so intelligent, we should be able to figure it out, I think. So
Yeah.
I think we're gonna be able to figure it out. But that's priority number one. And then eventually, shifting our focus to her having and us planning the wedding that
Mhm.
she wants to have, and then from there, who knows if I know she wants to have children.
Plural.
Plural, meaning like
Okay.
3, 4, and I'm more like on the 1, 2 side. So
Mhm.
if we're blessed for that to be the case, then yeah, that would be amazing as well for us to welcome a child into the world.
Yeah. Exciting stuff, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to keep saying it, right? But it's like nobody would have ever thought
No.
that like everything that's come to fruition is what it is today,
Mhm.
right? And I hate to sound like as corny as this, but like, if anybody's out there struggling and like you for a second like doubt the fact that like this is possible, you know what I mean? Like every single one of us can have whatever life we want. You just need really like, to tap into some sort of power and like be able to have like, some people around you that like see the vision, right? And obviously can help greatly with the vision. And you can do whatever you want. And again, it's not really from like a financial standpoint, right? Like it's just like you talked about, like you wouldn't cross the street to help somebody, right?
Mhm.
And like that's the way I grew up essentially, where it was like, what can I take from life, right? And like I found out that the more that I try to see like what I can pack into the stream of life, the better I seem to be. The problem is that like doesn't matter how much I know that, like I still wake up in my base setting every day where I'm like, oh, I got this meeting, I got this meeting, I got this meeting. Darnell's in the lobby. What's he doing here?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like that's like just how my head goes, right? And it's not because like Darnell's in the lobby or it's because any of that stuff. It's like I prayed for all of this. You know what I mean? I just don't want it. You know what I mean? Because I'm lazy by nature.
Mhm.
But it's a really cool life if you want it. It's for every single one of us, right? So before we do shut it down, anything else you want to talk about?
No, man. I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to come on, to the podcast and share a little bit about my story. You've obviously, we met in. I didn't know really who you were at that time, but we met,
Mhm.
some time ago. And since then, you've been in my life in different areas, just like crossing paths and in this field. And I'm really grateful that I met you and that we like have made it on this side, and now we're having a completely different
Yeah.
conversation. So I just want to thank you and let you know how grateful I am to be able
Absolutely,
to be
dude.
here and come on the podcast.
I mean, listen, full disclosure, I think I originally reached out when I first started the podcast and I was like, we got to get you on.
Mhm.
Right. And then like life just happens. And
Yeah.
you're like, you know what I mean? And next thing you know, you're in the lobby and I'm like, what do you got?
We got to
Like,
get you on the podcast.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry it took so long. You should have been like, first 5 episodes,
Nah.
but not to take away from the first 5, but like, that's like how high, not to continue to like pump you up but like, like that's how high, not to put you on a pedestal, but like, I think of like everything that you do for people that struggle like us, you know what I mean? In a completely different kind of in a different regard than like what I do for work, right? Because like you do it on like a different side essentially, which almost makes it even that much more noble. You know what I mean? Not saying that anybody's greater or worse than anything, right? But like that's just like you created this whole beautiful life for a number of people out of nothing, out of just like reading some things. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure there was a lot of reading.
There was a lot of reading, and there was a lot of there were a lot of people who contributed. And
I'm sure, yeah,
yeah, bro. There were a lot of
dude. We didn't even talk. We didn't even give her your sister, dude.
Bro, my sister is
she's still at like almost every event, like almost every function. Like bro. Definitely handles a lot of stuff,
bro. Yeah, she is. She's the one who gave me.
Also tracks down. She can track down a gift basket, something serious.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, I ain't got it.
Yeah,
I don't have.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude. I mean, and that's like what you need, dude. Like your sister, like, what an absolute killer. Like, you know, like definitely stands by the mission. You know. But yeah, you have a ton of good people in your life.
I do. I'm blessed.
So with that, if you've listened this long, I forgot to do my social plugs again. I'm the worst content creator in the game for sure. Give us a like, follow, comment, whatever on Instagram at PainWPurpose, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Pain with a Purpose podcast. If not, I'm going to keep doing them because like, I think that it's like good for, even if just one person hears it and sees that like you can literally have whatever life you want, or you can recreate your life to be like the most beautiful thing that you don't know on the front end, right? But essentially, after the work is done and like the process, you look back and you're like, I wouldn't want it any other way. So again, I definitely appreciate you coming out.
Appreciate you.
And with that, we'll see you guys next week.